Yo, what up, guys? It's QB back again with another vid, and we're going back-to-back days on this one. And this time, I want to get up a matchup that I think is very prevalent in this next format if we're going to be playing Teach, and also a matchup that you gotta know how to play. You have to understand and see your lines, because this is the deck that, I'm not gonna lie, could easily just knock you out of a tournament with how popular it could be with the new resources that it got in the PRB set, and that is GP Luffy. And so GP Luffy, truthfully, is probably the worst matchup for Teach. The reason being is that with Marigo, Sanji Pudding, and the Rush Luffy, they can kind of make their boards hard to deal with, and they can pressure your life instead of choosing to go board. And if they're deciding to tech Luna, then they can just ignore your board altogether and skip your turn of popping a board, so they can set up a board, Luna you, and then you just can't interact with their board for a turn. But here I want to get up a little game that I had today in High Ranked Sim, where I play against the deck and just try and give my theory, just kind of like why I chose to do certain things, how I went about it, and go from there. So just to give a short story about it, basically for the Teach deck, we're going to turn them off every single turn. We're going to force the GP Luffy deck to draw good, and if they draw good and they kill us, we shake their hands, tell them good game. But there are times where with all the searchers, they can kind of brick on everything, so you can have a chance to win the game. GP Luffy side, they're just going to try and pressure us, try and get us to 0 as fast as possible, and let Rush Luffy carry the game for them, and just try and make their board pretty awkward to pop. So here he chooses to, also as a Teach person, I want to go first most games. I want to be able to set up my Lafayette and Q and a Van Augur to Teach, but he decides to go first. I kind of look at this hand for a decent amount of time, just because it does have Lafayette and Q, which are two cards that I think are really important. But if I don't find Lafitte, it could get kind of awkward. Or if I don't find Van Augur, it could get kind of awkward going into my 6-dawn turn, especially if they do open Marigo. Then they can go for a Sanji Pudding into Marigo line, or a Zoro into reducing into Marigo line, where they'll say they'll be short on Dawn the whole game, but it'll be hard for me kind of to deal with the board, and once one thing sticks, it kind of goes. So I draw a stage return, which is really good. It actually maps my turns out a lot easier. Here I have to decide between pitching Tempest Kick, Black Vortex, or Stronger. In my head, if I was going to pitch Tempest Kick, I should have just spent it earlier, so I decided to pitch Black Vortex because I don't plan on using that card for a decent amount of time. And I hit my era. So now that I hit my era, I can go ahead and play it. I hit the Van Augur. I'm going to go ahead and grab Van Augur here. I understand that maybe I could grab the Stronger, but I'm going to end up pitching it. I could grab the Stronger, but I'm probably going to end up pitching whatever card, because every other card in my hand is really, really strong. And I'm just going to put myself on drawing Kuzan within like 10 cards. I think mathematically it's a sound play to do. I think the Stronger is slightly more important if I decide to guard a little early. But we're going to take the first swing. I hit Tempest Kick, I hit the Kuzan, so everything's looking pretty good. One thing that you have to know with this matchup now is I should be pitching. I should be either playing my bodies first and then pitch and then swing, or I should be pitching first before I swing because of the new Nami. So this is something that I'm still trying to get adjusted to, especially when you're playing on Sim. I may not be thinking everything 100% through and playing totally well. But here I have 7-cost Teach. I decided to go ahead and pitch the Stronger here. I kind of feel like I have the setup. Since I hit my era in my first turn, I know that my Tempest Kicks are pretty close to being live. There should be like 7 or so cards. So I'm really just going to feed into like, this Luffy's going to take a block. And then if he does go Sanji Pudding this turn, we do have the out for it. We have the out to be able to go Tempest Kick into Van Augur into Tempest Kick into pop it. And that's like the first step that has to be taken. It's a little, so this is what he does. He's able to go restand 3 done, turn make your Sanji Pudding a 7, and then basically asking the question like, can you pop this card on curve? If I can't pop this card on curve, the game becomes very awkward, because he's just gonna be able to like spam the board after that. So I check. I only have 8 cards in my trash, so I'm going to go ahead and rotate first. So we'll rotate out the Van Augur, see if I can get some type of card I really want to pitch. And then I will pitch Black Vortex here. Again, it's just not a card I think I'm going to be using anytime soon. I'm going to go ahead and grab some counter power, and then use Tempest Kick now that it's live to reduce the Sanji Pudding twice and pop it. and go ahead and leader ability. I think I pitch 6 Kuzan. I think I should pitch Doc Q here actually. So the thing is, he's gonna be able to clear my Doc Q already, and then if he decides, he can dunk into my Van Auger. If he does that, I'd rather play 6 Kuzan next turn, because there's no way for me to get tall enough to pop the Luffy in a Dawn without like Laboon or something like that. And I don't play Laboon, so he decides to swing a Van Auger. I'm going to go ahead and take that. Then he decides to swing 2 into Doc Q. I'm going to take that as well, so I get to draw 2 cards. And then he's going to go ahead and push the 6 or 7 to lead. And then I will take that as well. So I have a decent sized hand. Hit the Myera, get another 2k, get my last stronger. So I know I'm out of strongers at this point, I believe. And I draw 7 cost each. So here, I'm just trying to do some math on my end. I'm trying to see whether or not I can actually resist Luffy. This is why I say I should have kept the 6 cost Kuzan, because if I had kept 6 cost Kuzan, that card is really strong in this scenario specifically, because it can like bridge the middle part of the game where I need to pivot to decide whether or not I need to pivot towards Burger's beatdown. Or if I need to set up for like a pop next turn, then I could have just like summoned the 6 cost Kuzan, and then he'll take a block. I'll trade over this Nami. I grab 10 cost each, so now that I have 10 cost each, it's just a lot better if I had just kept the Kuzan over the Doc Q. This Doc Q just not going to do anything. So now I'm trying to think how I'm going to play out my board. I understand that like he attacked my Lafitte the last time, and one of the things about playing Teach, you can kind of sometimes use Lafitte as like a chump blocker. So I think what I'm thinking right now is like I can't get rid of it. I don't want him just to like really pressure my life, so I kind of want to put up this Shiru, I think, this turn. But I'm going to go ahead and play Lafitte first. See what I get out of that, in my opinion. Trying to see if I have a blocker, I think, for my Kuzan, to see if I need to pitch this Shiru or not. And then checking his Dawn. So right now he's only at 4 Dawn. So he's going to 6 Dawn next turn. Unless he finds another Sanjing Pudding, if he finds Sanjing Pudding, then he'll use his ability. But if not, he'll just kind of like be a 6 Dawn. So I don't know if he'll want to cap himself at 6 Dawn for the rest of the game just to be a 6k leader and get to use 2 more Dawn. Here I see Shiru, Doc Q, Van Auger. I'm gonna go. I think I should just grab Shiru here, mostly because we're coming to this part of the stage where like blockers become very, very important in this matchup, because every blocker can just protect your life from the restand Luffy. And I know I've already went through my 2 vortexes, so that card's not gonna be able to. I'm not gonna have that card. And then, so here I'm going to decide to play Kuzan, rotate out for Shiru just to get a free card, rotate a brick out for a blocker, and I'm going to pass here. So one thing I've been learning in my testing with Shiru is that like, one thing that's good about it is that it forces your opponent to play their cards first if they want to get like their abilities off. So decks like Rayleigh, decks like GP Luffy, like it wants to invest its Dawn first, and Shiru kind of makes it so they can't really do that unless it's like a 5 cost body. And so here he goes ahead and adds to his Luffy, and I'm thinking like, am I going to give him 2-1 or not? I could give him 2-1 on the first swing. It kind of depends. I think if he doesn't restand, I would give him 2-1, because I just think that I'd rather just preserve the 3rd life. But if he does restand, which he decides to do, I know that there's another 7 probably coming. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this first life. He's kind of putting himself low on Dawn. And then I'll just counter the second one. So like now, I get 1 extra card. I was already going to pitch this card anyway. And so now I'm here. So now he summons Zorojuro. He decides not to use leader ability, which I think is fair, because he decided to go ahead and swing twice. So he's going to be a 5k leader. So... And this is where, like I said, I need to be turning him off prior to swinging. Because if he had hit Nami out of trigger, it's just like another card that helps him find. It's just a consistency card that shouldn't get to work. And basically, what you want the GP Luffy deck is just a brick on itself, which can happen. So sometimes it can just brick on events or brick on on non-counter. But here I'm gonna go ahead and play 10 cost each. I think I'm pretty healthy. And I have Shiru, so if I decide this turn that I want to keep my Shiru up, then that works. I decided to swing with it. Basically, what I kind of talked about earlier. I think Shiru is good, but I think in the scenario, one, he'll never trade on it. Two, he'll just swing with his Zoro first. So my Shiru will end up blocking a later swing. So it's not actually getting a 2-for-1 in a situation. While if he decides to expand with a 4-cost body, then maybe Shiru can get a 2-for-1. So I'll go ahead and take the block here on the 7. I just don't think if he swings that other 7, then I'll guard out of that. But that would require him to basically almost kind of do nothing for the turn. He decides to swing 6. And these are kind of like plays where I'm kind of interested on his end. I understand not wanting to go too low on Dawn, just because I guess he's viewing the game as like, because we only played 2 to 3 teaches, that he can just outlast the teaches, which is fair. But I guess my concern would be that if I have another teach, then like this game could get kind of awkward kind of fast. So he goes ahead and takes a 5k, which kind of makes me think he doesn't have like a decent amount of like he has probably a lot of non-counter, more events than anything. And so I'm going to make the decision that I don't want this game to last much longer. I think because I know I bomb decked my 3rd teach and I only play 3, I know I'm not finding a teach in this next turn. So I can either go for the line where I go all blockers, and then for sure just stay at 2 life next turn, or I can go for a line where I can just go ahead and just pressure him to 0 and say, hey, like, I'll just be the aggressor in this part of the game. I think because I know my 3rd teaches at the bottom, I think it's more advantageous that I try and close the game out faster. Again, that's another situation. I think I should have swapped out 6-cost Kuzan is just more valuable than Ben Auger in this situation. So I should just swap that out. So then next turn, if I do need to pivot and say I don't feel comfortable trying to go for game, then I can just go like 5 blockers and try and win that way. But here I've kind of done the math. Like DMG doesn't kill me from here. If he goes for like a DMG line, it ends up being like 7, 7, 8. So I'm just trying to make sure I do the math on that. And then, so if he goes for DMG, I win. So my next thought is, well, the only other lines he can do is go for like a blocker restand and try and fit in swings and try and do it that way. And try and just depend on the events to win the game. I think one thing about the GP Luffy deck that's kind of interesting is that the survivability of this deck is like really high once you get to this part in the game, because Gum Gum Giant is such a broken card. There's so many like counter events now in the deck with DMG, Gum Gum Giant, and Bagua, and maybe Judgment of Hell, that like he can go for a safer route and just try and survive. But here I'm just kind of thinking on my end whether or not I'm going to try to close the game out next turn, and it kind of mostly depends if people double blocker or not. I just think that there are a lot of times where the Luffy deck can not have all the counter it needs, because you're trying to, especially when you're like not giving them any cards to search. So it's basically like, I don't want to say it feels lucky, but it feels like you're asking a lot of questions against this matchup where you're trying to decide what are the possibilities that it could have. So he decides that he can't really try and go for game, so he's going to go for the Sanjay Pudding, and he's going to restand all his Dawn, and he's going to have 6 Dawn up, and he is going to make his Luffy an 8 cost again. Make sure I just can't out it by any means, because it's probably the one card that can close the game out for him. And it looks like he's deciding whether or not he should swing with anything. For me, I would probably at least poke with the leader, see what happens. Like you poke 6, and there's a chance if you feel like you want to pivot, you can, but you don't have to. You can just like poke 6. I'll probably end up taking, because I'll probably end up blocking, and then from there it's kind of like, okay, like there's no point not to check swing. Like, I understand not turning your bodies because maybe you're scared about me swinging into your bodies, but it's one of those to me where if I swing into your bodies, if you can protect your bodies, you can protect your face. So he decides to just pass altogether, and he decides to see if he can live. So here, what I'm really trying to do the math on is whether or not if I can beat DMG. So right here, I'm looking, and this is why I should have kept the Kuzan, because maybe there's a different line where maybe I feel more comfortable. But right here, I'm doing the math. I have two 6K swings, and then I can either do 12-20, or I can like split in half, or I can decide to go for a 10K swing, see how his hand kind of looks, and then if I don't feel comfortable, go for like a Shiru line where I just go like 4 blockers. He has 6 swings looking at me right now. So what? Sanji Pudding, Monkey D. Luffy, Zoro, the Luffy swings tie, he says 5, and then leader 6. I would have 4 blockers. So theoretically, I wouldn't die, but DMG would kill me. So, because DMG would just rest my 2 Shiru blockers, and then he would just punch me in the face with those. So, right now I'm just trying to see the lines I want to go through. What's the best line? What's the best likelihood for me to win? And I think one of the things in this matchup is trying to understand what that really is and trying to identify that where it's a gamble. I'm like he's leaving me up 6 Dawn. I'm trying to think, okay, I've been testing the GP Luffy deck a decent amount. What kind of makes the game kind of awkward? And so to me, what makes the game awkward is when they check my hand for counter power. So I think that's what I'm thinking is if I check him for a 6, I can still go like Kuzan, pitch Shiru, summon Kuzan, draw, see what I get out of that. But I think as I think through my turn a little bit more, I'm starting to realize, okay, I have no more Strongers, no Black Vortex, and those are my 2 counter event power cards. So there's nothing I can really draw in my deck that's going to make this situation any easier. So I decided to check for 6, see how his hands looking counter power wise. Sometimes he hasn't countered out a lot this game. He hasn't had to. So just trying to see if he only has 2Ks or if he has a 1K. So he has a 1K. So which is good on his end. It doesn't give me any information. I don't learn anything in this situation. I don't get any good value. So here, still just kind of thinking, can I pivot to not going for game? And I think I kind of start to realize I already committed to the line. Like going Kuzan, going Burgess plus blocker loses to DMG. He's seeing so many cards where DMG just is probably in his hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and think about. I think I'm gonna go ahead and check him again for a 6 with the Shiru. Yeah, I'm like really thinking through everything right now. So check him for 6, see what I can get out of this one. This one he gives me a 2K, so he had a 1+2. So there's no more 1Ks, so it's only 2Ks left. And here I'm gonna go split. I'm gonna go 16-16. I don't actually know the math. I want to say that like when you're playing it against like Rad Beam, Gum Giant type ordeals, or in this situation, it's just better to split. I think the math is slightly better because here he's gonna go Judgment Hell, put me down to 13, which is really good. And then he's still gonna need 2 4K events to get out of it. While if I had swung 12. But that's what I'm saying. It could be the same math. I can't do it off the top of my head. So here he goes double Gum to get out of it. So he has 2 Dawn. And here again I'm thinking, oh, he only has 2 Dawn. There's a world where, and this is, I would have to do it again. There's a world I don't have to swing here. There's a world I can just go like pitch Kuzan. And we can kind of do it. There's a world I can go pitch Kuzan, summon Shiru, pass. He only has 4 Dawn. He goes DMG, rest the 2 blockers, restand 2. I have to guard 6, 6, 5, 7 to win. Yeah, that's just not doable. So I did have to push. I end up winning. He ends up not having the 3rd Gum Giant plus more counter power, which I felt like the odds are of him having all 3. He'd be at 0 Dawn. And so his line would literally be the same thing, be 5 or 5 5 6 7, and or 5 5 5 5 7 7 7. So I still lose even if it's another Gum Giant plus more counter power. But I felt like taking the risk right there is better. As you can see, I did make a few misplays within this game that could be tightened up a little bit, and that goes into evaluating the 6-cost Kuzan. There are a couple situations where if I did just keep the 6-cost Kuzan in my hand, maybe I could make some different lines, and it would have been a lot better, put me in a little bit more advantageous position than where I was. I think on my opponent's end, I think I would say the one thing is he put himself too low on Dawn with a 6-cost Luffy. I think the turn he decided to restand it, he maybe doesn't restand it. Cause I think he felt forced to, because the rest of the game he felt forced to not use his leader ability, which let me start chipping him for 5s. But if he just swings 7, I would give him 2-1 to stay at 3. My hand's a little bit lighter, but he could just still stay a 5k lead, but he would be going to 8 down on the following turn, and then he probably would have felt a lot better about his situation as well. So I would have been healthier, but also may not have found the second 10-cost teach. And so there's a couple things that could have been done differently on both of our sides, but just want to give a good game. I felt like me and my opponent both played well, and kind of more talk about the strategy when you're going to the GP matchup and just understanding like how to spot your windows, because I think it's very important. This matchup is very tight on the teach-in, where if you don't spot the window to go for a game or the window to get some chip damage in or take cards, then it could you could end up losing games that you probably should have won. So yep, that's the video for today. Just go over a little GP. Again, appreciate everybody for watching the videos. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for everything. Hey, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.